Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second edition of our wellness journey as we discuss performance chemistry. Once again, we have with us Celine Morin. Hi, Celine. Celine is an award-winning speaker and author of 2 books. She's also a registered health practitioner, and today she'll be talking to us about how to become your own CEO or Chief Energy Officer. Celine, thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Michelle, and hello to all the members, the advisors, and everybody else that is here on the call. This is the start of an inspirational and energetic journey together. So we have an hour, and that may seem long or it may be short, but it really can be more than just another 60-minute online virtual presentation if you let it be. This can be a life-changing pocket of time, no matter how long or short it is. But you need to make the choice to be here, right? Because you can be in front of your screen in your body, but that doesn't mean that your head and your heart are here. It's so easy to be distracted. I know that you could be doing countless other things right now. It's also a Friday afternoon. So why don't you give yourself the gift, the present of being present, because you never know what you might discover that could actually be a strategy that can help you transform your life. Because you wouldn't be here if you weren't interested in increasing your energy, maybe losing weight or managing your health in some way. So, because there's lots of distractions coming in, why don't you turn your phone over? Maybe even put it out of reach. I know that might be causing some panic for some of you. Take a deep breath. We're going to be talking about the breath in a moment, how it can help us when we feel panicky or stressed. Why don't you close some of the tabs on your computer so that you don't get distracted by notifications, and take this opportunity for the next 55 minutes to give your nervous system a bit of a spa, just to feel a sense of calm despite the chaos, because this really can be an oasis. And I'm certainly inviting you into that. And also make sure that you're comfortable. Maybe sit back in your chair. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders drop towards the ground. And then we will be able to start to speak about how you can manage your chemistry, because your chemistry, your physiology inside your body has a direct impact and determines not only your performance, but also your psychology. And if you want to be your own CEO, and for me, that means Chief Energy Officer, then you need to be able to mobilize energy on demand. And that means that you need a strategy or 2, or maybe a few more. And I'm going to be sharing many with you. Please stay till the end, because not only will we cover lots of different strategies, and it's going to be practical, because you're not just going to listen to me, because well-being is about being a certain way and doing things, right? We have a prize for you and even surprises on top of the prize. I'll also share with you at the end how you can be motivated and feel supported so that you're not on your own, because goodness knows, now more than ever, we need help on how to do this. So in the invitation, you may have seen, we're going to be covering quite a lot. So we're going to be covering things around stress, building awareness, how to stay calm. We're going to revise the Wellculator. Some of you may have been through it. If you haven't, you're in for a ride with that. We're going to look at building better work-life balance and integration. And I'm going to share with you, we're going to spend quite a bit of time focusing on how can we get not just a better night's sleep and rest, but how can we bring in strategic rest during our days so that we have energy mentally, emotionally, physically? Because when we have energy, I'm sure you'll agree, when you have lots of energy, you can move mountains, right? But when you have no energy, when you're feeling exhausted, and so many of us are not just feeling exhausted once in a while or on a Friday, we are feeling tired all the time. In fact, why don't you pop a yes in the chat if you are also tired or feeling tired all the time? I call that TAT, T-A-T-T, tired all the time. Because as I was saying, when you have energy, you can move mountains, but when you don't, it feels like everything is a mountain, and maybe even that everything is insurmountable. It's like we just can't get through everything. And goodness knows, in South Africa, we know what it's like when you don't have energy, literally. And so some of these techniques can help you when you're experiencing potentially challenges around load shedding too. So a lot of us are tired, we're exhausted, but we still can't rest well. So I refer to that as being tired but wired, because stress impacts our minds and we can't switch them off. And I'm going to share some techniques that can help you with that. And if we carry on in that state, that can lead to real burnout. That's the really ugly side of exhaustion, and also eventually dis-ease and disease. So why this topic and why now? Because I'm sure you'll agree, now more than ever, we need energy, like in our minds, in our hearts, in our bodies, to be able to not just work, but to get through life, right? We need to be able to keep up with the fast pace, with challenging change. And we cannot just wait for Friday afternoons or for the weekends to recharge. We need real-time strategies. So in the moment, on a Monday afternoon, on a Wednesday morning, on a Thursday midday, when you need to recharge, have you got tools in your toolkit that you can turn to? Because the more the demand that is placed on us, the more the need to charge. I mean, we know that with our devices. We panic when they look like they're going to get to the red zone and potentially run flat, and we plug them in. But what about our bodies and our minds and our hearts? We don't often think about, gosh, can I do a quick micro charge, you know? And when we don't do that, our energy drops and drops. And stress is what really is taking a lot of energy from us. And I don't want to add to your stress. I also want to mention at the start, we're going to cover a lot of ground. We've already started, right out the front. I do not want you to get to the end and feel like, oh my goodness, I've been to a buffet and I've overeaten and I have indigestion and it's all too much. Because we already mostly have a sense of feeling overwhelmed. I would like you, maybe write notes if that helps you concentrate. Also, if you keep your hands busy, I know when I do that, it helps me not pick up my phone and end up on social media. And I think I'm listening, but I'm not. Because multitasking is not a good way to manage your mental focus. But I want you at the end to commit to one small thing that you're going to take from today, from investing time and energy in being here. And that one thing is enough. That strategy can help you feel like you are your own chief energy officer. Now, when we talk about stress, some stress is very good, right? A little bit of stress got you to this call on time. It got you out of bed this morning. It motivates us. It's going to help you to get things done this weekend. It's when it's relentless and ongoing, and when we don't recharge or we don't release the stress that it builds up. And that's why today, the top trends that we're seeing across the globe are around mental health, burnout, lack of resilience, inflammation, which then drives disease. And stress causes us to be sick through many different pathways, but mainly because stress impacts the gut. And your gut, if you put your hand on your belly button right there behind you, you've got this beautiful organ. That's where your immune system starts. And when we're stressed, stress takes all the blood away from the gut into your hands and into your arms to help you to deal with the stress, whatever that might be. It could be the fact that you're running late. It could be the fact that the power's gone off again. It could be the fact that Teams is rebooting, or you've got a loved one that's feeling a bit sick, anything on your mind. That will then put you into, and I know you've heard of this, fight or flight. Sometimes it's also called fight, flight, freeze, and fold. It's a very primal response. Why I'm saying that is because it's inbuilt. So there's nothing wrong with it, but what's wrong is that today we don't get stressed once in the day. We get stressed from the moment we open our eyes and we reach over from our beds and start looking at our phones, right till not even the end of our day. Some of us wake up at night and then we toss and turn and can't get back to sleep. So nowhere in our day are we potentially feeling relaxed. And that means our bodies are on high alert. That picks up your blood pressure. The message from your brain is to release adrenaline. It gets your heart rate beating. It gets your gut to constrict. Hormones change. All the sugar from your liver, the glucose, gets dumped into your bloodstream for your muscles to use it. Your liver stops metabolizing food properly. Cholesterol goes up. I mean, it's not a recipe for success and fun and joyful living. And it's not your fault for not knowing how to combat stress, because we haven't lived through times as fast-paced and demanding as this. We also aren't taught this in school, which is why I'm so grateful to FedHealth for seeing how important this is and bringing this message to you. Because we need to learn how to manage stress and how to relax, because stress is always going to happen. Involuntarily, it's going to take place. Relaxation, though, doesn't. We need to learn that, because most of us are so on the edge of stress that we don't even know how to relax anymore. And so it takes practice. And so I would like you to feel as if you've been on a bit of a hammock today. And to do that, I'm going to encourage you to not just listen to me, because well-being is not about knowing knowledge. You can know everything, but if you don't put it into practice, you're not really going to feel the rewards, right? And I would like you to have a strategy or two that can help you to feel as if you're on holiday once in a while without having to go away. If you do want to go on holiday, by the way, do stay till the end, because that's part of the surprise prize, right? Now, one of the techniques that you can use that can help you feel like you are on holiday, or at least give your body a sense of being relaxed and creating calm inside you, despite the chaos around you. So you could be caught in traffic and clenching the steering wheel, or rushing, or working hard behind your laptop, or dealing with a difficult conversation with someone that you care about. Whatever the situation is, it can be chaotic around you. You can create calm inside you. You can shift your internal chemistry for better performance. And how? I'm going to share with you one technique. Now, I encourage you to try this technique, because I always say to my audiences, don't take my word for it. You know, just because I happen to be called the Wellbeing Whisperer and I kind of know a lot about this topic and I'm deeply passionate about it, doesn't mean that I know everything that's going to work for you, because we're all unique. But if you don't try it, you don't give your body a chance to experience it. So what I'm going to invite you to do, this is called the physiological sigh. It's a very powerful breathing technique that you can do anytime, anywhere. You can be very discreet about it. So even if you're with somebody, they may not realize you're doing it. However, when you practice it, it's good to over-exaggerate it, right? Initially. Now, please, if anyone is on this call and you're driving, do not do this then. Do this if you're seated. Because if you're not breathing correctly, because most of us do not breathe correctly, and when we are stressed, one of the things that changes right at the beginning of the stress cascade, before we even think we're in fight or flight, is we hold our breath and we start taking quick, shallow breaths. So I'm going to help you to change that in a moment. What you do is you breathe in as forcefully and as much air as you can through your nose. Try and breathe deep into your belly. So instead of going, you don't want to lift your shoulders up, because then all the air gets caught in the top of your lungs. So you want to go and breathe into your belly. And then you're going to breathe out through your mouth quite forcefully. Almost like you were sighing. Now, can you remember a time that you sighed? If you're a mother, it could have been last night at the dinner table, for instance. You know, well, not just a mom, a dad too, if you're a parent. But you know, when we sigh, we go, and we feel better already. So we're not going to do it like that, but we are going to breathe out quite forcefully. So breathe in, try this 3 times. Breathe in through your nose, as much air as you can into your belly, and then straight away out through your mouth. 2 more times, and out, and 1 more time. If you're in an open plan office, or you're at home and somebody's looking across at you strangely, that's okay. I think we worry a bit too much about what people think. Now, if you're feeling a little bit lightheaded, stay at doing it that way. Don't do the next version. But if you feel, hey, wow, that's given me an extra surge of it, because what it does is it boosts oxygen uptake, right? And immediately your brain feels good, and your heart and your parasympathetic nervous system from your heart starts to relax. What I'd like you to try now is breathe in twice through your nose and then once out through your mouth quite forcefully. So it would look like this. So try that on your own 2 times. That's all. Breathing twice through your nose. Lots of oxygen out through your mouth. 1 more time. And out. And notice how that feels. Maybe give me a thumbs up or an okay or a yes in the chat if you feel a little bit more lightheaded and oxygen, and if that's helped you sense and feel a bit differently. Yeah. So that's called the physiological sigh. There's science behind how that can help. When you do that, it helps to relax your nervous system. And what that does, it gives you a little bit more energy and the ability to focus and not go into fight or flight. So when we use our body, so the breath helps the body, right? It gives us a solid foundation. That means that we can support ourselves emotionally and mentally. Because I'm sure you'll agree with me, if you are feeling, let's say, sleep deprived and you're not breathing properly and you're dehydrated, there's no way you're going to show up at your best emotionally or mentally. However, if you've got a strong foundation, and we're going to look at how you can make sure that you've got a strong foundation, especially around the way that you rest, then you can not only help your emotions, so you can regulate the stress response, as well as help keep the big picture thinking, because stress takes away big picture thinking. That's why we react instead of respond, and we become like a champagne cork. We suppress, and then it just bursts, and we say things we regret, we make mistakes, we hit send on an email, and we're like, I should never have done that. A little argument becomes a complete catastrophe. So we don't want that. If you can calm your body down, and the breath is one way to do that. The breath is free of charge. You always have it. You don't have to subscribe to it. It's always there. We just need to tap into it. Then you can potentially have energy even for meaning and contribution and giving back and living a life of purpose and fun and joy. But it's impossible to feel joyful and have true meaning and purpose if you aren't looking at your foundation. So those of you that were at the first presentation, you would have been taken through the Wellculator with me. So the Wellculator I designed way back in 2006 when I left private practice as a dietitian and I started doing workplace well-being within the banks in Johannesburg. And what it is it's a framework that looks at 10 different areas that are essential for a strong foundation in your physical well-being. We're not going to go through the Wellculator in detail now. I'm going to remind you of the 10 points and introduce those of you that have not been through it to the 10 points. If you stay till the end, I'll show you how you can actually get your hands on the Wellculator, and you can not only do it for yourself, you can keep it to do it maybe again in a month or two's time, but you can also share it with those that you care about. So the Wellculator, how it works is you answer each question with a yes or a no, and you give yourself 1 point if you answer yes, and no point if you don't answer yes. You do not need to do everything 100% of the time because we're not looking for perfection. In fact, perfection can be exhausting, right? And we're not looking at exhausting ourselves. We're looking at how we can energize ourselves and have fun. Because when we have fun, that's when we stick to habits and behaviors. That's when we change most. That's part of the neuroscience that I'm going to share with you at the end, to help you really create a new action that can maybe turn into a habit. So as a reminder and as an introduction, these are the 10 areas of the Wellculator. So the first area looks at, do you strategically refuel for energy and good health? That means you have a plan around the way that you feed your body that helps you to keep your energy up and to feel good and get all the nutrients that you need. Number 2, and perhaps if you'd like to, if you want to keep your hands busy so you don't open tabs and pick up your phone, because I mean, I do that too. Write down yes or no to each question, and you could quickly get a score now, knowing that you can come back to it, because I'm going to share with you how you can download the Wellculator just before we finish. Number 2 is very important because it helps us with gut health. And remember, I mentioned that stress negatively impacts the gut, and that reduces our immunity. So do you eat like an artist? That means that you eat lots of colorful, fresh foods, and that supports good gut health. Number 3, do you practice mindfulness? Not just in the way that you eat, but also in the way that you live. We're going to look at that in more detail today. Do you hydrate? Now that's a quick one. Are you drinking enough water? Even in winter, it's important, because if we don't drink enough water, we can get headaches, feel tired, and when your mouth is dry, it becomes a false trigger to eat. Then number 5, do you know your health numbers, and do you not smoke? I'm also going to share with you how FedHealth is supporting you to really know really cool health numbers, so that you can make sure that you have a personalized target approach to your well-being plan. This is the exciting one for today, because we're going to deep dive into this. Are you getting enough rest? So are you waking up on most days of the week feeling rested? So is your energy high? So if you wrote down at the beginning in the chat that you feel tired all the time, you definitely want to pay attention to that. Then number 7, do you have strategies that help you keep a positive mindset? Because if you don't have a positive mindset, it's so easy because of the society we live in to get pulled into scarcity and fear. And there's a lot to be stressed about. I mean, living in South Africa alone is very, very stressful. I don't live there full time anymore. I was there for a month last month, and I was reminded at the extra levels potentially of anxiety. And a lot of them are out of our control. And that's something I'm not going to go into detail today. But what can drain our energy very quickly is when we focus on things that we cannot control or influence. So things like potentially the weather, load shedding, how somebody else is driving on the roads, and other people's reactions. We can't control that. There's so much, though, around your well-being that you can control. That's why today is important. That's why I say, and not lightly, that these kind of conversations can be life-changing pockets of time. Because if you can change yourself and create calm, despite what happens around you, and live a more mindful, joyful life, no one can take that from you. That's powerful. That's powerful. Then number 8 is, do you move around during your work day? I'm going to get you to move in a moment, because we should never, ever sit for longer than an hour at a time. It's really not good for our energy. And then, of course, we know exercise is good for us, but sadly, most of us are not doing enough exercise. And then number 10 is, do you notice when you are in the stress response? Because we're all a bit different. I know that I'm stressed when I'm clenching my jaw, right? But by then already my heart has been beating and I'm taking shallow breaths. So it's really important to know when you are stressed and to have techniques that you can use in the moment. So very much like the physiological sigh. Can you remember how we did that? If you're a bit late and you've only joined now and you're wondering what that is, it's a quick breathing technique that you can use in the moment to help you create calm despite what's going on around you. It helps to relax the nervous system by activating oxygen uptake and triggering that what we call the parasympathetic nervous response. And it's 2 deep breaths in through the nose. Sometimes the second one, you think you can't do it, but you can manage just a little bit of extra oxygen, and that opens up the alveoli in your lungs, activates the full lung capacity, and then out through your mouth like a sigh. It's like the more you do it, it's like having coffee, it becomes addictive. So today, your Wellculator, I'm curious what your score is. And if you haven't actually scored yourself, remember you can download the Wellculator. I'll share with you how you can do that. But if you want to, if you have scored yourself out of 10, please pop in your scores into the chat. And I'm keeping my eye on the chat, so thank you. I will, if there are any questions or comments and you want to pop those in the meantime, I know that I've got this great support team behind me. Thank you, FedHealth. Thank you, Michelle, that are going to also keep an eye on the questions, and we'll answer them at the end if there's enough time. Now, what we're going to do is dive into these 4 aspects of the Wellculator. So mindfulness, sleep and strategic rest, how they can help us stay more positive and keep a more positive mindset, and how this can overall help us to reduce the impact of stress so that we can keep our energy levels up. Now, the one place we can get so much information that can help us with our well-being is nature. If you think about nature, nature has got many, many cycles. So for instance, the top left picture, you can see it could be a sunrise or a sunset, right? Now the sun goes up and the sun goes down, up and down. There's a cycle there. On the top right, you can see the tides. So we've got the tides that come in and the tides that go out, the tides that come in, the tides that go out. We've got the moon. So the moon has, we just had a beautiful full moon, and we have the new moon, and the moon goes through a cycle. And even actually, before I move on, if you think about sunrise, sunset, the tides, the moon, none of that is instant. It's not like a light switch that just goes on or off. In fact, I noticed that the light above me just went off. I'm not sure why. Perhaps I'm not moving around in the office enough. But what we tend to do is we wake up in the morning after resting and we just switch on. We pick up our phones and off we go. Whereas we are actually wired, because we are part of nature, to wake up like a doll, gently, gently, slowly, slowly, and to go back to sleep, gently, slowly, relax, relax, and then sleep. And I'm going to speak about that because if we go against nature, we get sick, very sick, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And that's why FedHealth is seeing the value in a presentation like this. Now, music, some of you might enjoy music, so I thought I would include that. It's not really nature, but also music only works because of the pauses. If you just had the notes, the cacophony of notes, it would just be this loud noise. But because there are pauses in between some notes, we can then hear a melody, whatever it might be. So are you pausing? Are you honoring the natural cycles so that you can harness your energy more effectively? And thank you. I'm seeing the scores coming through in the Wellculator, and there's a huge range, right? From highs to lows. That's great. It's a beautiful tool. I've been using it myself for 13 years. It works well. So now, to help us understand these cycles and how you can apply this to your day, I would like us to use the cycles of the seasons. So we have spring, summer, autumn, and winter. So spring, of course, always happens before summer. And now in South Africa, I mean, I'm actually in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment. So it feels like summer has just arrived. You know, we had a quick spring, but now I know that in South Africa, we've got autumn and winter is on its way. And what do I mean by 4 seasons in one day? You know, because I'm not referring to a pizza. When you wake up in the morning, that is spring. So as you wake up and you become conscious that you're awake, you're in what I call spring. Then the moment you pick up your phone or you look at an email or you listen to the news, anything that's going to come from the outside world and it's going to trigger your stress response, so make you potentially feel like you go into fight or flight, that is when summer starts. Because in summer, you're working, you're reacting, you're agitated, you're buzzing about, right? It's busy, busy, busy. Then at the end of your day, just like in nature, in autumn, we know that the days start to get shorter, it gets cooler, the leaves start to turn brown, eventually fall off the trees. We need to wind down before we get into bed, and that's winter. So that's the hibernation. That's when your head's on the pillow, and for the next 7 or 9 hours, you want to sleep. So let's start at the beginning of your day, because if you want to sleep well, you definitely want to start your day in the right way. And I'm going to share with you a really useful tool that I use to help me with my hibernation, because I suffer from insomnia. And this tool has really been helpful. So if it can help you too, I think if more of us got better night's sleep, we would definitely respond better to stress and feel like we were more of our own chief energy officers, right? So what about you? When you wake up in the morning, what do? Do you wake up and immediately switch on? Or do you kind of like, you can see in that picture, it's an early morning and there's mist, and it's going to take a little bit of time for the sun to shine and then release the mist. Because a lot of us get up and then the first thing we go for is coffee out of habit. And then we start looking at our phones. We maybe just check, you know, the 70 WhatsApps that came through all the like school groups and things like that. We might jump onto Slack or email, and then immediately the nervous system gets kickstarted and adrenaline gets flooded into your system and you get into fight or flight, the stress response. Would you agree that when you wake up in the morning, your nervous system is probably at its most relaxed it's going to be for the whole day? Even if you had a restless night, you probably will feel quite rested. However, if you pick up your device or you engage with the outside world very quickly, you will start reacting to it. You don't even know if you woke up in a good mood because you didn't even check in with yourself. Like a lot of us wake up and we don't even speak to the person who's in the bed next to us, let alone ask ourselves, oh, how am I today? How do I want to be? No, we just engage with, and then we start reacting and responding. And so what I'm suggesting is, I don't know how long your spring is. I mean, if you want to pop into the chat in how long your spring is, for some people it's 30 seconds, because as they wake up, they reach for their phones. For some people it's 3 minutes because they go to the toilet first. Maybe they even take their phone with them to the toilet. I've been guilty of that sometimes. Maybe your spring is half an hour. Maybe it's an hour because you first engage with the family and the kids. Maybe you take the dog for a walk or you go outside. In fact, one of the best things you can do to help your stress and to get a good night's sleep is in the first hour of waking up is to spend 10 minutes outside, 10 to 15 minutes in the morning sunlight, because that sunlight that comes through the retina of the eye helps to balance your brain chemicals. Isn't that amazing? It helps to make you awake in a healthy way. So it's a bit like having caffeine without the downside. And it reduces melatonin so that your melatonin cycle comes in again at night to help you sleep. This was one of the best strategies I ever did for my insomnia. In the morning, before I look at my phone, before anything else, I go and have a cup of tea outside. And that's how small this can be. You know, it doesn't have to be grand gestures. You don't need to be rushing off to the gym and, I don't know, doing lots of breath work and yoga. And it's wonderful if you are doing that. I celebrate you if you are. But even if you just start with 5 minutes, staying away from your phone, you know, maybe having a glass of water before your coffee, because it's very important to hydrate when you wake up. What about going outside, maybe having a chance to express what you're grateful for? I have a gratitude practice. So I write down what I'm grateful for in the mornings. I think about the day before, and that's how I help my mental health. It really helps me a lot. And I know it's not always easy. You can't always go for walks because of the crime, and you've got to do the school run, and it's, you know, you might be tired. But taking 5 minutes for yourself, or 15, or an extra 5 minutes to what you currently do to make your spring a little bit longer could potentially be life-changing. Because before you know it, you're going to be in the summer season. I've just popped my eye across to the chat and I recognize somebody's name there. Very, very wonderful to see you here. Special human, Len. And we can be very busy, right? And during the day, our energy starts to drop. So just like when you're using your mobile phone, if you use it all day long, it's going to run flat. You need to recharge it. So how are you recharging during your workday? And sometimes it's not about having a siesta, right? We don't need to pretend that we're Spanish and stop for 2 hours. I know there's some days you may feel like that, but it's about stopping with maybe 60 seconds. So in the first presentation, I took you through an exercise called the mindful minute, where you count how many breaths you're breathing in 1 minute. We just did the physiological sigh. That can take you half a minute to do. And by doing that, it's like you stop this cascade, the domino effect of the stress response. So some other strategies that could help, because as you go through the day and whatever you might be doing, and a lot of us are spending a lot of time behind screens, to help keep your battery charged. And I'm going to invite you to do another exercise with me right now. It's 20-20-20 guideline. That means every 20 minutes, look 20 meters away from your screen. So look far away from your screen for 20 seconds and blink your eyes. By the way, I've just had a request to remind you that the chat and question tabs are the same. So on your side, you'll be able to see that the chat and the questions tab are the same. But right now, before you do anything else, look away from your screen. Just keep listening to my voice, but look away. Take 2 deep breaths, maybe 3, and blink your eyes. This helps with eye strain. It also helps you get perspective so you don't get pulled down into the stress response of the screen so much. And every hour we should stretch. So right now, just like all the cats and dogs out there, those of you that have pets, they get up and stretch every time they get up or they get down, right? So I give you permission. You can either get up off your chair, even if you don't, you know, just look behind you from each side, take your hands above your head, stretch, move your shoulders. We carry a lot of tension inside our upper body because of the stress response. And please, if you can, in the middle of your workday, give yourself a 20-minute break without your phone. Because often we stop, but we don't really stop. We're still on social media and answering emails and taking calls. And what happens is then we end up having snackcidents because we don't register that we've eaten, and then we potentially eat more, and we don't rest. And our days are chock-a-block, right? So what is the end of your day like? Because remember, we can't go from 120 kilometers an hour to 0 in bed and expect to fall asleep. That's when you will toss and turn, or you will collapse, but wake up in the middle of the night or the early morning and not be able to fall asleep. And a big culprit here is the fact that we are constantly switched on. We just don't create space from these devices and stimulus. We don't let ourselves get bored anymore. And if we don't control these devices, they will control us. They are highly addictive. They are not good for our mental health. They're there to help us, but we need to manage them. So for instance, I use the do not disturb function. So at night, a lot of my apps will shut down at 9 o'clock at night, which helps me not to go into them. We can also, like now, I've got my phone with me just in case, but it's on flight mode so that while I'm presenting, I'm not distracted by it. And now more than ever, with the pace of change and technology and AI, we need to take breaks from technology. We need to create margin, breathing space. We even say that, oh, I need breathing space from these devices so that we're not constantly switched on and stimulated. And this takes courage. This is possibly one of the hardest things we're going to need to do over the next few years, because there will always be work to do, emails to answer, things to think about, always. There'll always be something drawing us in on social media. And so being able to stop and say, I haven't finished everything, I haven't read everything, but I have done enough. And I am important enough to go and spend 10 minutes outside and breathe some fresh air before I go home, and then approach the rest of my life, at least with some energy. That means that you need clear boundaries, clear boundaries. You know, my family are from France. They're from the Champagne region in France. And you may know this, but champagne can only be called champagne if it's made by grapes that come from the Champagne region. It's a very clearly demarcated area. And if the grapes that are used from somewhere else, it's not champagne. It's called sparkling wine or cava or La Cap Classique in Cape Town or English sparkling wine. So if you want to stay sparkling, effervescent, what are your boundaries? You know, for me, a good definition of boundaries is a boundary is the place where I can respect and love you and respect and love myself at the same time. A boundary is where I can respect and love my work and love and respect myself at the same time. Not easy to put into practice, but the price is big if we don't. Because remember, no is a full sentence. And sometimes we need to say no to things in order to be able to say yes to others, such as no to my device, yes to sleep, so I can get proper hibernation and rest. Because often we get into bed, we want to fall asleep, but like not even half an hour before, we brush our teeth, get into bed, and then we're still on the screens. So we never actually stop, you know? We go from one screen in the day to like 3 screens at night, iPad, phone, Netflix. So this is negatively impacting us. A lot of us are not getting enough sleep. When we don't get enough sleep, we feel hungrier for carbohydrates and sugar, so we put on weight. Our immune system goes down. We're more inclined to have mood shifts and changes. Our memory doesn't work so well. We have low libido. We get higher risk of heart disease. We can make mistakes. We accelerate aging. I mean, no one wants to get older faster, right? So if you want to dive more into sleep and you don't know this guy, so Matthew Walker is like the global expert on sleep. He's written a book. And if you don't feel like you want to read a book, maybe you can watch the TED Talk. It's 19 minutes. Very good TED Talk about sleep and why it's so important. But what I'd like to do for the next 10 minutes or so is share with you what has helped me with sleep. Now, I mentioned I've always had insomnia. I now understand it because I've done some genetic testing that explains that my brain doesn't clear all the dopamine so easily. And I'm going to share with you very exciting news about genetic tests that you have access to. And so these 5 things, these 5 areas that I'm going to share with you have really helped me to approach sleep with more fun and joy and to shift the way that I sleep. And it's helped a lot. So I'm going to share with you 5 senses. You know what your 5 senses are, right? Your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your ears, and then touch. As I share the 5 with you, what I'd like you to do is think about which one of these senses do you feel like, hey, I've never thought about that, or I could do more of that? Because remember, you can't do more of everything, because then you set yourself up for failure, and that's no fun. I want you to leave here with a strategy to own the title Chief Energy Officer, and I want you to be successful at putting that into practice. So not too much at once, one thing at a time. The first sense I want to start off with is your mouth. So everything that we eat and drink. Caffeine and alcohol are sleep killers. So if you are drinking caffeine, try and have your last cup of coffee by midday, because caffeine sometimes can take 6 to 8 hours to clear from your system. And if possible, switch to decaf. And if you really are struggling with sleep, or you need to be really focused for work at a particular time, think about going easy on the alcohol, because alcohol and caffeine really destroy our sleep. Also, try not to eat too late. And if you can, have 2 hours from eating your last meal to when you go to sleep. And some people report that taking magnesium biglycinate, 300 to 400 milligrams before sleep, can help, because it relaxes the muscles. And a lot of us are deficient in magnesium. You could also drink a herbal tea like chamomile out of the same mug. So every time you have that mug, it's like the Pavlov effect. You know, when we train maybe a dog with treats to do something, every time you pick up that mug at like 9:30 at night and you put in your tea, it becomes, oh, this is part of my wind down. The second sense that I'd like us to look at is that of sight. Now, your eyes, the visual cortex, takes so much information from the moment you open your eyes and you enter spring season till you shut them. And it's exhausting. And one of the things we do before going to bed is we go to the bathroom, right, and we brush our teeth under this very bright light. And bright lights activate wakefulness. That's why I asked you at the beginning of your day to go spend time outside and see natural light. So ideally at night, you want soft lights. So could you, if you think about your home, could you use lanterns and lamps, so lamp shades, more than overhead bright lights? If it's safe, could you maybe use candles? I know when I was 19 and that was a long time ago, when I went overseas with my South African friend who was Dutch, everyone that she took us to around her family at night, they all put candles on. And I thought it was lovely. And since then, I've done that a lot. One of the things that has changed the most when we look at photographs of Earth from out of space over the last 50 years or so is the proliferation of light. The Earth used to be dark at night, but now it's lit everywhere. So how can you bring in some darkness? And you know what I'm going to ask you to do now, or I'm going to give you permission or invite you to do, is why don't you give your visual cortex a break? So why don't you, for the next half a minute or so, close your eyes or look away from the screen, look down. If you feel comfortable and safe to do so, and it is safe to do so, close your eyes. Maybe even cup your eyes with your hands. It'll make it even darker. And just keep listening to my voice for a few more seconds and give your eyes a little bit of a break. This helps to lubricate the eye and just breathe, go inward. And as you listen to my voice, we're going to go into the next sense, which is around hearing. You can keep your eyes closed if you'd like to for a while. And those of you that have babies or you've put a baby to sleep, we know that we hold them against our chest and we often hum, or sing a lullaby, because music and sound is very, very soothing. So if you're struggling with sleep, have you used and experimented with music? So have you listened to, maybe there's music that's available free of charge on YouTube? You can, if you are maybe subscribing to Spotify, you can look up something called binaural beats. It's music that helps to relax the brain waves so that you can slow down from beta brainwave to alpha to theta to delta to fall asleep, almost like you were being sung a lullaby. Or maybe you could listen to nature sounds. I sometimes put on birds or waves or rain. I like rain at night. It helps me feel calm. If your eyes are closed, you can keep them closed if you want, or you can gently open them to let the light back in and just notice the difference. If maybe the colors look a little bit more brighter. I know when I close my eyes for a bit, or I put an eye patch on just for 10 minutes in the middle of the day, when I look again, I'm like, wow. Yeah. So can you experiment with sounds? You know, there's things like hypno meditations that are available on lots of apps like Headspace and Calm, and also free of charge on other streaming platforms like YouTube. Then the second last sense that we're going to look at is touch. So very important. We need touch. When we are connected with somebody, we hug them or we snuggle, we release oxytocin, and oxytocin helps us to relax. So if you are lucky enough to have someone that you can snuggle to before going to bed, amazing. Or even a pet, great. If you can't and you're alone, like I live on my own, you could maybe have a bath because the warm water can act like a cocoon. You can also just massage yourself. You know, just a few minutes of firm touch help, especially around the shoulders and the neck, can also release oxytocin. And then what's important is, how do you feel when you're in bed? Like, what is your mattress like? Have you bought a new mattress in the last 8 years? Do you like the sheets around you? And what are you sleeping in? You might be sleeping without anything on. If that's comfortable, great. If you sleep with clothes on, do you sleep in the same clothes that you exercise in? Because I was guilty of that. And somebody pointed that out to me. And I'm like, yeah, I do sometimes. You know, like t-shirts that I will sometimes run in. And they were like, well, why would you do that? Because the message is that you need to be moving and increasing your energy. So those are things we don't often think about, right? Also, the temperature is very important. Now, in winter, it's easy because generally it's cooler in our rooms because we need 18 degrees generally to sleep well. However, if you're not in load shedding and you've got your electric blanket on, it could potentially be too warm for you to actually fall asleep. So being in a cooler room is also quite helpful for sleep. And then the last sense is one that we've already tapped into. It's the one of the nose and smell and using breath. Breathing is a powerful way to help the nervous system relax. And there are different breathing techniques that you can experiment with. You know, you can do box breathing, you can do body scan, you can do in for 4, out for 8, because if you lengthen your exhale, that helps you to relax. You can do the one where you tense your muscles and then relax as you breathe out. Tense, and you work all the way down or up your body. Please be curious about how you can use your breath to help you relax, not just at night for sleep, but during the day. And something, if you'd like to, you can look this up on the internet, is called NSDR, non-sleep deep rest protocols. If you're not getting enough rest and you just can't manage, maybe you've got a baby or young kids in the house, or for whatever reason, you can't get enough sleep. Could you, during your day, especially in a day where you feel particularly exhausted, could you do an NSDR, a non-sleep deep rest protocol? And that is a way, it's a recipe that takes you through the body and helps you relax. I use one that's 10 or 11 minutes for free on YouTube, and it works like a charm. And we need to try new things, right? Because we're going through extraordinary times. So we need extraordinary measures to help us with our resilience and well-being. So as we move into the last 10 minutes and the home run, I'd like you to reflect to yourself, of the 5 senses that I mentioned, which one are you going to be more aware of? Or which one do you feel, gosh, I never thought about that? You know, are you going to think about eating and drinking, trying a supplement, having tea, thinking about what you look at, relaxing your eyes, having softer lights? Are you going to try different forms of music? Are you going to maybe experiment with maybe massage or different forms of touch, or getting like nice linen that feels good? Are you going to experiment with breathing techniques? You cannot do all 5 of them. If you're an overachiever, you'll try, but by next week, Wednesday, you'll probably bomb out and then you'll feel guilty and bad, and that's not good. Now, I know it's a lot to take in. You may not want to come back to the recording. So FedHealth is going to make a summary of what I've just gone through available, because I put it together into a sleep and deep rest guide. So in the thank you email, please look out for that. You'll have an option to download both a sleep guide as well as the Wellculator. So I really encourage you to do that, and feel free to share it, especially with those that you know need more energy or are also struggling with sleep and deep rest. So when we want to live a healthy life, we need to have like a point of direction. That's why the Wellculator helps me so much. And this is a journey, right? We don't just arrive. Even I have to be reminded about how I'm going and what I could potentially tweak and fine tune. So we've been on quite a journey today. Firstly, I want you to maybe reflect on, do you feel more calm than you were an hour ago? If you don't, could you take a few slow, deep breaths? And if you do feel more calm, then great. Thank you for gifting yourself the present of being present. because we discussed a lot, right? We looked at the impact of stress. We looked at the Wellculator, and the Wellculator alone contains lots of information. We specifically looked at mindfulness, different ways of getting better sleep, thinking of the seasons as a way to help us stay more positive and joyful, and how to better manage stress. I mentioned that FedHealth is going to has made something available for you. So we need to know our health numbers. That's 0.5 on the Wellculator. Very important to know your health numbers. If you don't know your health numbers, you don't know whether your cholesterol's okay, your blood pressure, your blood sugar. But what's really cool is to have insight into your blueprint, your DNA, your genetics. And I've done lots of genetic testing because it's given me such interesting information. And then I know I can take the right supplements, do the right exercise, eat the right way. And so what is available through IntelliGene and FedHealth is a way for you to access some of these tests. So you can access this on the website. And if it's something that you'd like, to dive in deeper and get some more data on yourself, know that that is available. Right, now we've come to the point where I would like you to think about what action you're going to take. I see that there's been quite a few shares in the chat, thank you, around which one of the senses appeals to you more. So maybe that's your action step. But maybe it's something else that I mentioned on the Wellculator. Or maybe it's something that you've been meaning to do and start. And this has just been a lovely reminder. Because you know what? I mean, if all this well-being stuff was easy, we would all be healthier, happier, fitter, and I wouldn't have a job. It isn't that easy because of the impact of stress on our lifestyles, because we self-sabotage, because we've got belief systems so we don't think we can change, because of countless reasons. So whatever action step you take, and it could be one that you've already shared, or it could be one that you think about as I conclude, here is a recipe on how you can create a tiny habit. Now, this is based on proven science from Stanford University, Professor B.J. Fogg, who wrote the book Tiny Habits, as well as the author James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. They both research behavior change and neuroscience, and this is what works. When you want to start something new, make it tiny, easy, and obvious. Tiny, easy, and obvious. I'll give you an example of that. If you want to start your day with a little bit more spring, start your day by maybe it's as I wake up in the morning and brush my teeth, I will think of one thing I'm grateful for. So can you see what I did there? I didn't say 3 things. I didn't say write it down. I just said think of one thing I'm grateful for, because that's easy. But I also anchored it somewhere. I said, when you brush your teeth, you've got to give new behaviors a place to exist. If you don't, it's like putting a seed into air and expecting it to grow. It needs sunlight, it needs water, it needs soil. So you need to think about, where am I going to do this new behavior? So if I'm going to have a cup of tea before going to bed, or if I'm going to leave my phone in the kitchen rather than next to the bedside table, I'm going to charge my phone in the kitchen at 10 p.m. before I go and brush my teeth. So be very specific about where and when you're going to do this new behavior. And then please, this is the most important step in the recipe, allow yourself to feel good when you're doing it. Because when we feel good, we change most. We change most. So the research shows people that do small things and do them often and feel good about it, like you smile to yourself, or you track it, or you just give yourself a little thumbs up. It doesn't have to be a dramatic thing. Just 1 second. Acknowledge that you're doing the thing that you set out to do. And I promise you'll repeat that. So this is where we wrap up. Are you clear on what is one action? You don't take more than one thing from today. What is one thing that you're going to do? And if you'd like to pop it into the chat, it's wonderful for you to write it and also to be witnessed by us all. But what will you do, and where and when will you do it? So how will you make it easy and obvious to do? And remember, you can be supported, because we're going to send a thank you email, and you've got the downloads available. Also, at the beginning, I said to you, please stay till the end. And the reason why is there's going to be a prize, a 5,000 Rand towards an overnight stay for 2, anywhere of your choice, This draw will take place after the presentation because we need to know who is here, and an email will be sent out early next week. Also, the winner will be contacted directly to advise them that they've won, and the winner will be detailed in the thank you email with a link to a survey. So please look out for the thank you email. You may be a winner, and also to give us some feedback, because if you enjoyed this, we'd like to know. And if you have any feedback, we'd also like to know. I'm going to wrap up there saying that may you take this pledge that you're committed to, or something from today, and may it help you have 1,000 wishes, because a healthy person has 1,000 wishes. A sick person has just one. We don't want to get to the point where we're sick and all we can think about is that one thing, which is to be well again. And if you would like to contact me, let me know how you're doing. I love to hear from anybody. You can find me on various different social media platforms. But on that note, I am going to perhaps hand over to Michelle and see if there's any final words, or perhaps if there were any questions that came through. And I want to celebrate each and every one of you for being here and putting yourself and your well-being first.
Thanks so much, Celine. Oh, yes, is my mic is on, hey?
Yes.
Yeah, there were some questions. There were lots of questions that came through, and we certainly won't be able to answer all of them today. There was a very interesting one. I thought that if we've got some time, maybe you can answer it quickly. One of our viewers asked. She mentioned that she suffers from severe migraines that sometimes last for up to 5 days, and she'd never considered sleep as a trigger. Bad sleeping as a trigger for migraines, and wondering if sleeping patterns is something that she should be looking at for that.
Yes. Sleep is the only time that the brain goes into lymphatic activity. So it's cleaning up, a bit like the lymphatic activity of the body. It cleans out plaques and tangles. And it's the only time that brain waves go into restful, what we call theta and delta brainwave activity. Absolutely a strong connection. My grandmother suffered from those kind of migraines. I'm so sorry. They are debilitating and painful. And the visual cortex as well, right? So often people with migraines can't stand light. Maybe bringing in a little bit of the strategic rest, so moments in your day where you can rest your eyes, but definitely look at sleep and the quality of sleep. Absolutely.
And then maybe just one more, and I know that it's something that some people do, not just the person who's asked this question, but is it bad to sleep when you have a light on? Should you be in total darkness, or is it okay to have a light going?
I've never been asked that question. Do you know that? That's lovely. It is better to be in total darkness. However, for some people, being in darkness might trigger the stress response. So there's a reason why the light is on, perhaps. So I would maybe soften the light. Could you make it softer? Change the light bulb. If it's safe, put a different shade on to make it as soft, and maybe ease over days and weeks, making it less and less and less bright. But there's something about sleeping in darkness, not total pitch darkness like in a cave, because back in the day we would sleep outdoors, and remember the moon, full moon, you've got quite a bit of light out. But try and reduce artificial lights, just to give your whole nervous system a chance to relax, as long as you feel safe to do that.
Celine, thank you so much. I think we are out of time. Somebody did ask the question in the chat as well to ask if this is being recorded. Yes, it is being recorded. For those of you who joined late, or you'd like to share this recording with somebody that you think could really use it, this recording will be available. It will be sent out in the FedHealth newsletters within the next few days. So it will, please share it and listen to it again. Or if you came late and just missed some of it, it's there for you. Celine, we look forward to seeing you again. And yeah, thanks very much to everybody who joined us. I hope that you found it as valuable as I did. We'll see you again.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, FedHealth.